Absolute power corrupts absolutely. Power is the ultimate aphrodisiac. Such common expressions, and there are so many more that we all know. We all know the truth in those statements, and we also know how perverse and insidious the allure of power and the powerful can be. I have met, as I'm sure we all have, people who appear and probably are quite ordinary and unremarkable, but the power they hold, whether it's political, financial, social, or even religious, I might add, whatever their claim to notoriety or fame or position, the powerful are seen to be gilded with an allure and carry a certain indefinable aura of prestige. They inhabit a space that makes them fascinating, desirable, frightening, loathsome, tiresome, take your pick. However we feel, publicly powerful people usually elicit a response of some kind. King David has ultimate power. Having vanquished his enemies and fought his way into a divinely predicted future, the House of Israel is now a nation, and his own predicted dynastic legacy, the House of David, is come. Significantly in our story today, for the first time, the very first time, this warrior king does not lead his army into battle, but stays back at the palace. And I wonder, does that indicate a change of heart as well as change of fortune? However, David can, it could be said, again for the first time, he can relax a bit, maybe while away a bit of time, strolling about in the cool of the evening, musing and idly checking his city out. He spies Bathsheba, wants her, takes her, impregnates her, and to cover up has her husband, who is one of his loyal soldiers fighting at the front, killed. And perhaps murder is a better word. Power, desire, corruption, death. That's what the story is telling us about. Jesus, the healer, the miracle worker, the rabbi, the teacher, attracts crowds numbering up to 5,000. They are hungry. He makes miracles out of 5 loaves and 2 fishes. He feeds all 5,000 of them, and there are still 12 full baskets left over. Jesus can see that they want to make him a leader, a king maybe, so he skedaddles. Later in the evening, he walks miles across the stormy sea to the disciples in their boat, who are terrified to see him in the middle of the sea. This sort of power is astonishing and miraculous. It defies our human understandings. Power, generosity, miraculous love. Both stories are about power, but reveal vastly different uses of it. The power of David is the power we see in much of our world today. We want it, so we will have it. Blow the cost in financial, human, or environmental terms. We want, I want, individual desire rules. Material wealth and accumulation are signs of success. The collective, the communal, the neighbour, the other, the hurting, the hungry, all pale beside the rapacious and brutal desires of powerful corrupt leaders, bankers and businessmen, corporate sharks and wealthy elites, gangsters, warlords, and such like, who plunder, murder, and maim with impunity for their own gain and to maintain their preeminence. Power makes them think they are invincible, like David. This sort of power feeds upon fear and abuse and finds its home in deceit, greed, and violence. David, the hero, the warrior king, begins to fall with the story. He has broken 4 of the commandments: murder, adultery, lying, and coveting your neighbour's wife. Subsequently, his family goes to pieces, and the nation of Israel is plunged into chaos and begins to crumble. David's behaviour descends into that of an oriental despot, desperate to maintain power, rather than his call to be a man of God. He has been seduced by power of the very worst kind. In contrast, the power of Jesus is open, compassionate, and giving, wanting nothing for itself. It tells of the divine wealth of a loving, empathetic heart that brings joy, life, and radical amazement. It is about the miraculous power of gift, the gift of life and of love, from Jesus to the 5,000 and his disciples, from me to you, from you and me to our own individual worlds, wherever we walk and beyond. This story of Jesus feeding the 5,000 is the only miracle story that is in all of the 4 Gospels, so it's worthy of closer examination. There is no traditional Last Supper in John's Gospel. This is it. Jesus takes the loaves and the fishes and uses the Eucharistic symbolism of take, give thanks, and distribute. With such abundant results that there are 12 overflowing baskets of bread left over. In many interpretations, this is seen as alluding to the 12 houses of Israel, people who were hungry for justice over against the corrupt priestly powers, the ruling classes who supported them, and the might and empire of Rome. Jesus assuages their hunger and gives them abundant new life and hope. And we too are on that mountain. These Jesus stories are, like many stories in the Gospels, directly related to corresponding events in the Old Testament. Feeding the hungry masses and stilling troubled waters. Remember Moses wandering in the wilderness and the manna that fed his people. The stilling of the waters and the deep darkness upon the sea recall the creation stories found in the opening chapters of Genesis. When Jesus says on the water, "It is I," in response to the disciples' fear, he is really using the same words for God in the Old Testament, "I am." This phrase, "I am," indicates a theophany or an appearance of God. Here in Jesus we are given a new creation, a new way to live, a new and abundant life. And it speaks of the wonder and miracle of divine grace between us, and which permeates all of life if we choose to embrace it. We are here in church today because we believe in the ultimate mystery of life that we call God. The mystery of this incredible and beautiful and painful life that calls us to goodness and hope, that we see most perfectly in Jesus, and that we live between each other. The Bible chronicles wonderful and dastardly deeds and stories, ordinary human stories of our faith history that teach us how precious and fallible we are, and how to live and not to live. We could say, quoting Mary Daly in our sentence for the day, that God is in and is seen in how we live. We are known by our actions, how we are together, what passes and moves between us. God is the dynamic of life and is here amongst us as a verb rather than an object or a noun. Most moving for me this week is today's epistle from Paul to the Ephesians. And we don't normally read the epistle, but I'll read it because it's very lovely. It's very short. This then is what I pray, kneeling before the Father, will forgive Paul, from whom every fatherhood in heaven or on earth takes its name. In the abundance of his glory, may he, through his Spirit, enable you to grow firm in power with regard to your inner self, so that Christ may live in your hearts through faith, and then, planted in love and built on that love with all God's holy people, you will have the strength to grasp the breadth and the length and the height and the depth, so that, knowing the love of Christ, which is beyond knowledge, you may be filled with the utter fullness of God. Well, our prayer for the day is a paraphrase of this reading. While the progressive theology of St. Matthew's, which St. Matthew's espouses, does not hold to the literal interpretation of biblical texts, nevertheless therein contains such wisdom and beauty, and this passage, I believe, is one of them. Paul exhorts us to go within, to seek our inner voice humbly and in love, as this is where we learn to find the Spirit, to live strongly in love and in faith, where we find the resistance to the corruption or the things in the world that David was praying to. This is the power we seek, the power that enables us to transform our lives within and between us, that stretches beyond, that brings us here together where we share in the deep and inexplicable power of the Eucharist. We do not, like David, fall into chaos and crumble. We are given the power to see clearly in strength, with faith, the power to give and to forgive, the power to love. Amen.